Scouting under Starlight. After sunset, following a quick thieving excursion to a poorly guarded porch, where Rutsnut acquired 2 leather hound collars with sturdy leashes, the pair made their way to the Dolefield property. Rock rode upon the fox's back for such an evening trek, as it was a very risky thing for a daybird to fly too far in the dead of night, or walk for that matter. Other foxes wouldn't be quite so friendly if they encountered a half-blinded rook upon a midnight stroll, bumping into fence posts and tree trunks. And even tree trunks would offer little friendship at such hours if a crowbird flew into them head-on. So Fox and Feathered Rider arrived at Dolefield Farm for their opening operation. They first patrolled through the meadow, like officers of an army, making sure the reclining cows were in proper formation, facing towards the windmill. But this evening an additional strategy was implemented by the duo. The cows were arranged so that those sleeping closest to the fence were the herd's heftiest and most orderly, and these moo beasts were given additional instructions. Satisfied with this, the pair followed the fence-up meadow, looking for the sturdiest post, Rutsnut nudging each along the way to test. Finding the most suitable one, Rock looped both leash handles over the post, then slung a collar over Rutsnut's neck, buckling it tight. The fox slid the other collar, made for a smaller dog, over the bird's torso, wings included, and Rock buckled this as firm as he could bear. Then both pulled at the leashes to make sure they were fastened securely. "Let's go over things one final time," said Rock. "If this train's beam does entrance me, and I'm pulling free to fly my last flaps, grab the nearest wing to wrench my gaze away. The tail won't hold, but make sure those fangs don't sink like I'm some fowl in the gums." "I'll try my best," said Rutsnut. "And if I become entranced, grab an ear of your choice. My fur won't hold, but don't go tearing tongue like I'm some felled grazer." "I'll try my best also," said Rock. "Hopefully these leashes will be enough if worst comes to worst." But despite any nervous jesting, both well knew the threat being faced here tonight on the deadly outskirts of Dolefield Farm. They did not know exactly how they would react to the power of this train, yet could hardly test it from the safety of Mischief Manor. This mischief had to be done on deadly sight. And so the fox and rook, crouching in the grasses, secured best they could, waited for the approach of the dreaded locomotive. The fox's lofty left ear scoop angled towards the track, and probing snout seeking the slightest scent of wind-blown smoke. Hours passed, and the track was still dormant. By now the bassy snoring of cattle could be heard nearby. But though it was tempting for the pair to doze likewise, particularly Rock who was up far past normal roost hour, their senses kept uncanny focus. Then the fox's ear moved with a fine-tuning twitch, picking up the first traces of high-pitched rail hum, which the perceptive pair knew signified speeding steel wheels beyond the horizon. "We have one on its way," said Rutsnut. Soon inky smoke was seen seeping into the skyline, then gushing, followed by the telltale glow of uncommonly potent lamplight. "The train comes. Do not turn. Hold your positions." Rock ordered the Dolefield cows in strident caws, as some stirred, loosening the formation. Rock and Rutsnut braced themselves, and as per their plan, the rook took the first viewing of the train, aiming a single eye, while Rutsnut sealed his lids but still observed with snout and ears at full flare. The locomotive swelled and roared, light now beaming forth from its eye-like lamp. Rock held his breath, waiting for this beam to freeze him, or send his wings into motion, or some other remarkable effect. But he felt nothing of the sort, and no growing force as the train approached and the light began to pierce the night and dazzle the vicinity. "I'm immune," cawed Rock with relief. "My turn," said Rutsnut, and they were both even more nervous now, since Rutsnut, despite his swift and graceful ways, was indeed closer to a cow in form. The fox turned to face the roaring machine and the light painted his noble snout, while setting his amber eyes aglow. Suddenly the fox lunged towards the track and the leash leather strained with the force. "Resist it, Rutsnut," cawed Rock and slapped the fox in the face with his wings in alternating blows. But his partner was frozen, wide-eyed, even his ever-twitching ears motionless. Then just as Rock aimed to wrench the nearest nostril, Rutsnut made an amused squeal and hopped back. "Just fooling," he said. "I told you I'm no moo beast." Rock sunk a spearing peck into the fox's paw for his trouble, but the trickster bird was mostly annoyed he hadn't thought of this ruse himself. And so the pair held their gaze upon the charging train, almost upon them, and shot quick glances back upon the cows, who for now were holding position. But it's impossible for a whole herd to have the discipline of this fox and crowbird, who were highly focused individuals, even for their kind. And soon anxious lowing broke out as a number of cows couldn't help but turn to view the train. "Hold your position." Rock caught again. Alas, some cows soaked their broad faces in the baneful beam and began to walk, then rush towards the track. The luring light had them in its grip. Rock and Rutsnut were astonished to witness the effect of this train up close. "Guards, defend," trumpeted the rook. And now this second measure was seen in action. Those hefty, hand-picked cows closest to the fencing formed a tight defensive line, blocking the rushing animals. The train was close enough to feel the tremors in every fleshly fiber and smell the hot coal breath. The entranced cows smashed into the defensive line, and the Dolefield guards struggled to contain the manic force of these spellbound animals. Soon the line was breached, and a cow pressed through to the fence and rammed the timbers with the weight of 100 foxes, or 1,000 rooks. The train then seemed to slow, as if allowing time for the animal to breach through to the track. But a vehicle of this size needs much time to halt its own momentum, and no exceptions would be made this night. The monstrous machine swept through, churning the fur and feathers of the Mischief masters in its wake, and shaking their very bones to the marrow. Breaking wheels squealed like a wood of warring boars, and sparks shot about the spies like the gunfire of an army of farmers upon their tails. Never had they been this close to such a track-bound behemoth, and the force was otherworldly. As the locomotive passed, sparking wheels showering the meadow, the pair noticed great dents, bent and buckled panels, and lashing scars along the engine. Carriages displayed fractures and torn holes in the wooden walls, and the occasional wheel even completely absent below. The windows glowed with coppery light from interior lamps, and passengers were vaguely visible, secluded from the violence beyond. But fortune was with the herd this time. The entranced cow, having failed to reach the track before the braking train, had been forced past by the laws of matter. Once its opportunity for destruction had passed, the train picked up speed, and the trailing smoke now seemed to lash about in frustrated fury like the tail of an agitated predator. But maybe it was just the wind. Then the smoke column seemed to descend, sift and probe the trackside wood and the edge of Dolefield Farm, as if trying to sense the mischief-making orchestrators of this new defensive strategy, and coils even lingered over the very hiding spot of the fox and rook, crouched in the high grasses. But again, maybe it was just the wind.